Hi again, guys. So I'm back with the second half of today's lesson, and like I said, the other one went a little bit longer than I was expecting, which is great. It just means that we went over our materials fairly well. So I'll just try to make this one a little quicker without, rushing through everything. The good thing is that we've seen this before. It's not brand new. It's just a little review, so I am able to maybe move a little quicker than I would, normally would if it was something brand new to you guys. So for this one, that's that second handout, the stem changing verbs, and you'll see the little boot here, and I'll explain why the little boot in just a second. And I colored mine, and you're able to do that if you guys have time. I would prefer for you guys to wait at the end to see if we have time to color that, rather than do it before. I just did it because, I wanted to have it ready for you guys to see what the end product should look like. So now we're going to be talking about those stem changing verbs, and these tend to be pretty difficult because we learned, that when I conjugate the verb, I'm left with the stem, and I just add an ending to that stem. Well, now you're telling me I need to change my stem. So that is a little difficult and a little confusing, but this is why I have this for you guys. Again, little cheat sheets for you. So without me starting to, blab on, because I do that a lot, let's go ahead and start cutting. So I'm going to cut along the solid lines, and you do have two of these, so you can just cut right across. All along the solid lines of each little rectangle here. So these are others that you, again, and there's a lot of that in Spanish that you just have to memorize, because this one, it's one of those, it is what it is, stem changes, and then you attach that ending there. So I'm going to just trim this one on my left, and then the one on my right. So if you guys could just turn to your the next two blank pages in your notebook. We'll be attaching one to each. Okay, so let's start with, you know what, let me start with tener first, because tener was from the last chapter, and we saw it come back a little bit in one of our activities here, and you will see it in your test. Okay, so let's just review this one since it's the one that we practice with the most. Okay, so we have the verbo tener, and you don't have this. You just have you have to write that in there. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. So just fill in that information there. We have the infinitive form of tener. Again, infinitive meaning it ends in that er, ir, or ar. In this case, is er, and it means to have. So this is again my stem, but we know this is a stem changing verb. So that means in a few of these conjugations, that stem is going to have to change. Okay? So in the yo form, and again, these are irregular verbs, so they're gonna, not follow a specific conjugation rule. It's one of those go verbs, actually, again. Just like we saw in salir, which was a go verb, salgo, tener is also one of them. So, in this case, yo, it's tengo. Now, my stem didn't change here, but it's irregular, so I have to do a go here. Okay? So, tengo. In the tú, and again, I'm just going through these because we've seen this before, so I'm going through this one a little bit quicker. Okay, this shouldn't be brand new to anybody. Now here's where my stem begins to change. Tú dices. Notice how oh no, I messed that up. I'm doing the wrong verb, you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're doing tener. I'm jumping over to decir. Tú tienes. I'm sorry. See? Mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. Tú tienes. Notice how my stem went from ten, ten, to T-I-E-N. I had to add that I in there. Tienes. Él, ella o usted tiene. Again, that stem changed. In the nosotros form, notice how it's not inside that boot, and I'll explain that in a second. That stem doesn't change. The stem stays as ten. So to say we have, nosotros tenemos, again, that stem remains the same. And in the they or you all form, it does change again. So they have, ellos tienen. Okay? So those endings are go, and that's probably not a good idea to do the yellow over the green. So let me switch that up. Tengo, tienes, that ES ending, the E ending, the hemos ending, and the N ending. And that may sound familiar from the ER verb conjugations. Those endings, except for the go. Again, that's what makes this verb an irregular. Instead of that O that you would normally add in the regular ER verb conjugations, we have to change that to a go. Okay, so it's a go verb as well. And the reason for that boot, we call these boot verbs or shoe verbs, you might hear as shoe verbs as well, is because the stem change or the irregular part of it only applies to those verbs inside this little boot form. So if you look at your conjugation chart, it only applies to the singular side, all first, second, and third person tense, and the plural third person tense. So if you kind of look at that, that kind of forms like a shoe or a boot figure. That's where this comes in. And that's good to remember because, remember, in the nosotros form, that stem doesn't change. It only changes in these tenses, and we include this one, even though the stem doesn't change there, we include that because this is what makes this verb irregular, that go ending. Okay? So now, let's, where are my scissors here? Now let's cut open these, how we're going to, make this interactive. We're going to cut along. Leave those dotted lines as they are. We're actually going to cut along the solid lines this time. Solid lines up to the dotted line. So all of these solid lines up to the dotted line. I'm going to cut. Same on the other side. And the very last one. And we're going to fold them over along the dotted line. Okay? So again, you're going to be creating like little flaps to open and close here. Along the dotted line. And actually, this one we're going to keep shut, so you don't even have to fold that one. And the last one. And we're going to tape it. And you're going to only to tape, or glue, sorry, that middle section, the heading, so kind of like a T form. And find the one with the X, the second person plural. So that T, and then the one with the X that we don't conjugate with. So we're just going to keep that one shut. And just glue it down the middle of your page. Okay, so now you're left with the little flaps that open except for that one. Okay, now underneath here, muchachos, I want you guys to work on writing a sentence with each one of these subject pronouns and the verb. And unfortunately, I don't think we have time to do that in the video. So once we're done with the video, and if you guys have some time in class, that's where you'll do this, okay? But I would like for you guys to use the vocabulary from the chapter, okay? So as much as you can. You know, it may not fall that way, but just as much as you can, use the vocab to review it, okay? So for example, we know a lot of words for transportation. For example, car. We learned that car is carro. So I could say something like, I have a car, okay? So my sentence underneath here would say, yo tengo un carro. Yo tengo, I have a car, un carro. And again, you're using the verbs that we studied, the conjugation for the verb, but also vocabulary from our chapter. And you know, your sentences don't really have to like be true. Like if you wanted to say something like, I have an airplane, right? Just to kind of get that into practice. Or he has an airplane. Él tiene una avión. Okay? Just to get that vocabulary in there. So again, unfortunately, I don't have time to do that with you guys, but following my example here, following your examples on the outside and your vocabulary from this chapter, you guys can do that if we have time towards the end of class, okay? So that's the verbo tener, again, my stem changing verb. My second one is decir, and we really use this one. That's why I wanted to spend the last few minutes of class on this one. And I'm looking at the time, and maybe I have to be a little quicker than I want to. But the verbo here is decir. Okay, again, it's in the infinitive. But this one is an IR verb. Okay, IR. And again, it means to say or to tell. So let's go down and cut the little flaps. We have that ready to go. Cut along the solid line, excuse me, up to the dotted. Solid up to the dotted. Same on this side. And then fold in, except for that one with the X, because that one we're actually going to keep closed. When I was in high school, actually, I took AP Spanish, and we did have to conjugate with that vosotros, and it's difficult because the rules to that are a little different. So it's, you know, it's a good thing that you don't have to worry about that one for Spanish 1. If you continue with Spanish, you may have to eventually, which is great because it's a beautiful, you know, the Spanish, the actual authentic Spanish is beautiful to learn it, but don't worry about that right now. All right, so let's do the same. That T form and that X square. And let's glue that down. All right, so again, I'm going to go through the conjugations a little bit quicker, but explaining, you know, that stem change that occurs just because we saw this a little bit earlier in the chapter. So again, to say I say, you would say yo digo. Now you will notice that that stem did change. That stem changed from DEC, this, to DI, D. And again, it's a go verb. Instead of that O that we would apply to those regular IR conjugations, right? We applied a go instead. To say you say, it's tú dices. Again, notice that conjugation changed from DEC to DIC. Él, ella, o usted dice. Again, I remove my IR. I'm left with DEC, but my stem here changed to DIC. Well, what happens in the nosotros, remember? It's not a part of my boot. So, does the stem change, yes or no? It does not. Decimos. So all I do with that one is apply that regular IR rule. I remove the IR and I add in the imos. Remove the IR, I'm left with this, and I write the imos. So this one conjugates as a regular verb. Again, that's why this was not part of my boot here. That stem change rule doesn't apply to the nosotros form. And then the ellos, ellas, and ustedes, again, it's part of my boot, so that one does change from DEC to DIC. Ellos dicen. Dicen. Okay? And you're going to notice that, except in the yo form, which again, it's a go verb, everything else conjugates like a regular IR verb. We have se, imos, en. Se, imos, en. Except for that, again, yo form, which is a go instead of o. And then again, they fall within that boot. We call it a boot verb because the stem changing rule applies to only these. It goes from des to these, or the in the yo form. The nosotros stays as des. You just add that imos ending. And again, if you guys have a little bit of time that's in class, then you'll go in there and write your little sentence for each of these. And a little reminder about this verbo here, that how we used it here. So to say, for example, dice que, or, digo que, depending on the conjugation. When you add that que, it means to say that, okay? So dice que, I know dice is my third person conjugation, so I could say, he says that, blah, blah, blah. Digo, digo is in the yo form, so that says, I say that, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And you're going to see that on the test, because that's how we saw it in our examples in the chapter, right? So, for example, and again, use your vocabulary. I could say, let's see, I'm looking at my vocab here. I say that the bank is far, okay? And again, those are vocab we've studied before, okay? So I could say, yo digo que, I say that, remember the little note here, the bank, if you remember, that is el banco, is far, está lejos. Okay, so again, this is all vocab we've studied in this chapter, so none of this should be new to you. So you guys go ahead in the last few minutes of class, take the time to write a sentence similar to that, using vocabulary from chapter 4 for the rest of these verb conjugations. Okay, so now muchachos, you have plenty of material to review that you have in your notebooks to go back and study over the next few days. You guys remember, I'm giving you a heads up, our test is on Monday, and even though we have one more lesson to look at, we will have Friday to review. You'll have the weekend, and I know I don't like to give homework, but take a few minutes each day to kind of review and prepare for that test on Monday. Okay? If you guys find that you need a little bit more time, you can continue this on tomorrow. That's not a problem. Just kind of pick up where you left off and finish off, and then begin the lesson that's scheduled for today or for the next day. Okay? All right, muchachos, great job today. I will see you guys again soon. Hasta luego.